Hello
Hello
there.
there.
Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars and Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Eli.
I'm Jacob.
And today, we're finally getting to the end of Season 17 of Star Wars and Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm very excited. We're very excited. We have our retrospective today. The next week, we are, of course, going to be doing our special episode, which we've decided to be our 5th episode of Star Wars Opinions. And then right after, we're going to be going right into Star Wars Jedi Survivor for a marathon season that will be releasing throughout the summer, although Jacob and I, due to scheduling constraints, will be recording pretty much in the span of a month. So that's going to be fun.
It's gonna be madness.
It's going to be
Survivor madness.
Yeah,
it's
fever. It's going to be Survivor. It's going to be Survivor. That's what I'm calling season 18, Survivor Squared. All right. It's Survivor of Survivor. But anyway, we're not talking about Survivor today. We are talking about Young Jedi Adventures and about our overall thoughts of the season. We have our retrospective format here in our notes. And yeah, let's get into it. Jacob, let's have you go first. What are your overall thoughts for season 1 of Young Jedi Adventures, at least the stuff we watched?
Yeah, we had our kind of, courtesy of your selections, Eli, we had our mutant half season where you selected about half the episodes. Is that around how
roughly,
many you had
give
us
or
watch?
take?
Roughly half the episodes, what you deem to be the best, the most important ones. And I think you did a very good job, because I didn't really feel, aside from a couple of characters that got introduced in the ones that we skipped, minor side characters, I really didn't feel like I was missing much, which maybe says something about the show overall. But hey, generally, I think animated Star Wars shows do have a pattern of, in earlier seasons, being a little bit less serialized, a little bit more fragmented. So I can't really complain, especially on this show. But my overall thoughts, I went in being pretty skeptical, because this is not just a kids show in the way that Clone Wars or Rebels is a kids show. This is a show for the wee little ones in your life. It definitely is. That being said, I ended up really enjoying this season. I was a skeptic at first. I definitely had to come around to it. Obviously, it's much more on the relaxed side, the silly side. The target audience is, probably 4 to 7 years old, maybe. But with that being said, I think that it does a really good job of upholding what its mission is with that in mind, while also making it fun and passably interesting and enjoyable, oftentimes much more than passably, for people of all ages. Once you get into some of the deeper stuff with Tabor, when we get more of an examination of Kai, especially who Kai is, what he's about, it becomes really genuinely an interesting and compelling show at many moments. So overall, I think it's a minor triumph, I would say, for being a kids show for the little ones, for being a mostly unserious show. I think it does a pretty bang up job.
I would quibble with it being an unserious show. I think it does. I think that's actually one of the things it does the best, is it takes itself seriously. It has fun, but it does take itself seriously. But I very much agree with you. I said, though it is at the end of the day, a little kid show. It had some surprisingly deep moral and political themes that match up perfectly with the vision that George had for his little Space Wizard saga. Some great little stories of the ones we've looked at about greed, identity, and about how the choices we make affect others around us. I would absolutely love a second season of this show, especially if it ties in more with the High Republic books and comics. Although I believe that Leslie Headland is going to satisfy that urge with fans very soon with The Acolyte. But yeah, it's one of those things where, it's a kid show. It's a show for 4 to 7-year-olds. You're, I think, probably close to right about the age. I don't know exactly, but yeah. But it does explore some incredibly complex themes that even older fans can appreciate.
Yeah, I think, given the show and its mission, I was pleasantly surprised by the end, by how it uses the questions of what does it mean to be a Jedi to really look at, for a younger audience, but still accessible to a younger audience, but still significant for anyone, really. what does it mean to live a good and meaningful life?
And
in
I think
relation to
also
others.
the best part of the show that I remember hearing at the time, I'm like, oh, it's interesting. Not necessarily doubting it at the time, but just like wondering how it would all play out. But I think the best aspect of the show is it takes place during the High Republic era.
Yeah, it's a different
Because
look at the universe.
it's a different
Absolutely.
look, and you also don't have to worry about the moral decay of the Jedi. Like, if this had happened in the prequel era, you would have to like worry about, because I'm not saying the Jedi of the High Republic are always right, but they're right a hell of a lot more often than the prequel Jedi.
Yeah.
And it's like the Jedi and of the High Republic do generally have moral clarity, because it's when they're less clouded by the dark side and their own hubris and all that kind of stuff. So it makes their decisions feel a lot like, it makes their judgments, even of course Yoda, who we know in the prequel era, but he even makes his more like we can trust the guy and not like constantly looking over your shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, wait. Oh, shoot. I lost my place in my notes. I'm sorry. Give me a minute. Do you have any more overall thoughts, or should we go into our ranking?
Only that I'd love a second season of the show, and I'd honestly be a little disappointed if Lucasfilm isn't working on one right now, but that's really it.
No, I actually agree. I find myself agreeing with you, mostly because I want to know what the hell happens to Tabor. Oh my gosh,
Me too.
I need to know because, yeah, I
Me
need to
too.
know what happens
Like
to Tabor.
legitimately,
I'm not gonna hold you. I need it.
Yeah, no, Tabor. One of the things that I think Tabor's story really did was get me in a good headspace for Crosshair's story in season 3 of the Bad Batch, because they've both had a very similar arc of, I know what I'm doing is wrong, but I can't seem to stop doing it. And
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I hope that Tabor gets a similar story to Crosshair, because I really think how they handled it in Batch season 3 was a really nice way of handling a redemption story, and I think that Tabor deserves something like that. But all right, so how we do our ranking? We have 25 episode halves to rank. I put The Prince and the Pirate as 1.
So this was a doozy.
It was tough, and we're gonna have, I'm sure, incredibly different rankings. Can you send yours to me, Jacob, so I can put it on our sheet? All right, here we go. We have 27 of these that we watched.
Oh my gosh.
Counting The Prince and the Pirate as 1. And all right, Jacob, from 27 to 1, go right ahead.
Number 27, the dubious distinction of last place. I have The Mystery of the Opal Cave. 26, I have The Young Jedi. At 25, I have Nash's Race Day. At 24, I have The Lost Jedi Ship. At 23, I have Squadron. At 22, I have The Jedi and the Thief. At 21, I have The Thieves of Tharnaca. At 20, I have Forest Defenders. At 19, I have The Tale of Short Spire. At 18, I have Yoda's Mission. At 17, I have Tree Troubles. At 16, I have Stuck in the Muck. At 15, I have The Princess and the Jedi. At 14, I have Finders Keepers. At 13, I have Jellyfruit Pursuit. At 12, I have Aftershock. At 11, I have Charhound Chase. At 10, I have The Caves of Batu. At 9, I have Kai's Bad Day. At 8, Clash. In 7th, I have Life Day. In 6th, I have Raxlow Strikes Back. And 5th, I have Talon Takeover. In 4th, I have An Adventure with Yoda. In 3rd, I have Off the Rails. In 2nd, I have The Team Up. And my favorite episode was the finale, The Prince and the Pirate. Eli, what do you got?
All right, here we go. And I'll share this with you again. I think you have it, but
In Google Docs?
Yeah.
All right.
Here we go. Here's my order. 27, Finders Keepers. 26, The Jedi and the Thief. 25, The Lost Jedi Ship. 24, Nash's Race Day. 23, Mystery of the Opal Cave. 22, The Princess and the Jedi. Number 21, Life Day. 20, Forest Defenders. 19, Tree Troubles. 18, Raxlow Strikes Back. 17, Yoda's Mission. 16, The Young Jedi. 15, Aftershock. 14, Off the Rails. 13, Squadron. 12, Kai's Bad Day. 11, The Thieves of Tharnaka. 10, The Team Up. 9, The Talon Takeover. 8, An Adventure with Yoda. 7, Stuck in the Muck. 6, The Jellyfruit Pursuit. 5, The Tale of Short Spire. 4, Charhound Chase. 3, Clash. 2, The Caves of Batu. And of course, like Jacob, The Prince and the Pirate at number 1. I was actually skeptical. Thought for sure that The Prince and the Pirate was not going to be your number 1 based on stuff you said last episode, but I'm glad that it is. Yeah, because anyway, but
because of my Raxlow love or something else?
No, because you indicated the last episode, I feel like that it might not, like, that something else might not be. I think you said like something like it's not my favorite of all of them.
I think ultimately I changed my mind. I know that initially I had some other ones over, but ultimately I think I had to hand it to them what the writers did with that episode. I think looking back on it, I was like, whoa, this was really cool and not something I was expecting for this show. And I really appreciated
episode. Yeah, but we'll talk about it later.
I really appreciated the fact that, we'll get to that later, but
let's look at our list. Jacob and I are looking at our list comparatively right now. What we usually like to do after we list all of them is look at them.
Why so high for you?
Why is what?
What about Caves of Batu made it your?
Yeah, so Caves of Batu is near the middle of Jacob's list, and it's number 2 for me. For me, it's about Path of the Jedi is one of my favorite episodes of Rebels Season 1. And I think they very well executed a Path of the Jedi-esque episode, which is not an easy thing to do. I'm always going to love. Look, do I love the political stories? Do I love the grand adventure stories of Star Wars? Of course I do. Do I love like the grit in the ground of it all? Yeah, but like these stories are rooted in these intrapersonal tales of discovery, of figuring out who you truly are, of facing your fears. And that's what they do in this episode with Kot. And I think they do it, as I said last episode, they do it without violence, which I think is a lot easier, looks a lot easier than it actually is.
Fair enough. I think I agree with almost everything you said. I guess I just didn't rank it quite as highly compared to the other ones. Yeah. I did enjoy, like you said,
same thing.
See same thing happened kind of with Kai.
Same thing happened with the team up. Actually, exactly the same thing happened with the team up. Both of our number 2s are the other person's number 10. I just noticed. We switched on that one. What was it about the team up for you?
I think for me, just seeing Tabor and the Jedi bounce off each other in this different way, where they have to work together, is really interesting, especially, as it precipitates the main twist and the main, as it precipitates the climax of the show, which is, of course, on Starlight Beacon, the Jedi and Tabor coming together and the audience learning Tabor's secret identity. I really enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed seeing them work together. I enjoy seeing the Jedi and Tabor's crew get along. Tabor being very reluctantly, but just planting the seeds for something more and setting the stage, I thought was done so beautifully. And it just really left me being more curious and eager and hungry than ever to learn about Tabor. And that was what really pushed me over the edge of being like, okay, like I'm invested now, was this episode in particular. So I think that's why I ranked it so high, was because of what it did for Tabor and the Jedi in relation to one another, and just moving the story forward and upping the stakes.
Yeah. For me, I feel like everything this episode does, the Talon Takeover actually just does better. We'll talk about this later, but I think that Selak and the Gangles are a way better villain than Teldon and his crew, who just did nothing for me. It's great to see them team up. That's why it's so high. But yeah, no, every time they team up, obviously Off the Rails is pretty high for both of us, though it's way higher for you than it is for me, actually, which I think just like what I think is a lot for me with these top 15 especially, the top 15 feel to me like an embarrassment of riches.
How-
It's not that I dislike, for example, the Thieves of Tharnaka, which is
Okay.
ranked at number 11 for me. It's just that there are 10 episodes I think are better.
Yeah, there were a lot of really good episodes. I was surprised as I was
Like
going back through trying to figure
like
out
the
how I
biggest
felt about
gaps
them.
for me in where between episode qualities are between Aftershock and the Young Jedi, so my 15 and 16.
Mhm.
And then the bigger one is between The Princess and the Jedi and Mystery of the Opal Cave. That gap is huge. Whereas Mystery of the Cave and below, basically my bottom 5, were fine. They just didn't do a lot for me. But everything above at least did a little something for me. I actually want to talk to you about Life Day, which you have at number 7, and I have at number 21. So 14 spots apart.
Wow. Okay. So first off, it must be admitted, I am an Ewok fanatic. What the fuck did I just say, bro? That
You've been Ewok
strike that
fanatic.
strike that from the record. Strike that from the record.
Nope.
My excuse is that I'm tired and I'm jet lagged. I am a Wookiee fanatic. Ewoks can go burn in hell. Little
What the
devil
hell?
creatures. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No.
Like,
Okay.
we'd have a
But I
problem if
do.
you said.
I am
okay.
convinced that the Ewoks are. They look sweet and furry, but they're also bloodthirsty and maniacal, and they ate all the stormtroopers and cooked their bones. That's
I mean,
just a
yes,
fact in my book. They
but
are
like
just
also
horrifying.
they're teddy bears. But anyway,
They are also teddy bears, but they're like murderous teddy bears. Anyways, it must be said, I am a Wookiee fanatic. Kashyyyk was so gorgeous in this animation. I felt like such a sucker for that. That automatically boosted it up in my esteem. I think this was just a fun, light episode, and I think a good example of if you have a good setting, some appealing characters, a great backdrop, you don't have to have high stakes to make a fun and enjoyable, memorable story. I think the Jedi gang just running around causing all kinds of chaos, trying to find the missing orb. Liz wanting to go with the others to the Life Day ceremony. Her whole process, her emotional kind of roller coaster that she takes because she's freaking out about the orb right before the ceremony, breaking it. It's a fun story. I enjoy it. And I just enjoy getting to see more of the Ewoks. I did it again. What is wrong with me, bro? Getting to see more of the Wookiees. God, that's embarrassing, man. Getting to see more of the Wookiees, getting to see more of Kashyyyk, getting to see Life Day in specific. I found it highly enjoyable. I think ultimately that's what the show is about. Just having something short, sweet, and fun. And sometimes it has, more of a emotional or philosophical kick, and sometimes it doesn't. And this one doesn't, but I don't think that's to its detriment.
For me, I think it's a very good episode with some A+ set dressing, basically. Don't get me wrong, love the Wookiees, love Kashyyyk, love seeing the red robes, the globes, blah, blah, blah. The episode without, if you actually boil down what the episode's about, it's fine. It's very good, which is obviously why it's not at the bottom, but why it doesn't get that high either. Yeah. And yeah, I think those are the major differences in ours. I have Charhound Chase quite a bit higher than you do, but I think that's because of High Republic stuff.
Yeah.
I have the Tale of Short Spire a lot higher than you do, but I think that's also because of High Republic and Jedi stuff.
Okay, first of all, Charhound Chase, I enjoyed that episode. I had it at 11. I thought it was a good episode. This was, I think for me, Jellyfruit Pursuit, which is my 13th, is the cutoff between good episodes or some decent episodes and episodes that for me are really more memorable and jump to mind when I think of, Young Jedi Adventures. So I think for me, Charhound Chase being 11th, like you said, for Thieves of Tharnaka, it's just a function of other episodes that I enjoy more because there are a wealth of them in this show, especially because of the short format. That being said, for Charhound Chase, I enjoyed seeing Kai interact with an older Padawan, seeing that dynamic play out with Bell, Kai. This is not the only time that we see this story play out with Kai, but it's all the point where Kai is struggling with the fact that his identity, to some extent, is being super competitive and trying to be the best at just about everything, and having it seems like a great deal of natural talent, and it really upsets him, and he doesn't know how to cope with it when that isn't the case. And he has that moment of perspective with Bell saying, I'm not like a good Padawan because I'm just naturally talented at it. I'm good because I work at it. And I enjoy seeing that message for the Jedi.
It's for me, any episode I approach with a pretty open mind, and of course I want to love stuff, but pretty much every time there's any sort of canon connection, I become the "you son of a bitch, I'm in" meme. And those get me more than anything else. Seeing Belzetifar in a show, hearing his voice. Same thing with Loden. Same thing with the Stalamaru. Same thing with Lena. So seeing an animated version of Starlight Beacon. That's why I think a lot of stuff like Stuck in the Muck is pretty high for me. Adventure with Yoda with the Nile insignia. Charhound Chase is beautiful. Charhound Chase is the closest we've come to a live action, not live action, closest to we've come to an on-screen mention of maybe one of the greatest planets in Star Wars. And I will be laughing all my way. Like, I will be laughing all day when we finally hear the planet of Elfrona mentioned somewhere.
Oh,
I will be laughing and Jared will be burning, and it'll be a great day.
trivia sadist.
Guilty as fucking charged. But yeah, no. I think we covered quite a bit of our differences. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, maybe we can talk about this. Maybe this can go into our best and worst. Because there's one other difference that I saw on here that is interesting, I think, to me. Let's talk about Finders Keepers, which you put solidly in the middle, and I put dead last.
I think Finders Keepers. For me, first of all, I really enjoyed seeing Baraka, and in this show, given what this show means to me and how I went about enjoying it, as you've heard me talk about it, where it's not always of the utmost seriousness, despite the fact that it can be and often is. I enjoy things like being able to see Baraka, being able to see the Scrapper life on Baraka, getting the Dianoga attack with the pick, these crazy tiny rat-looking people with their John Lennon round sunglasses. Like, it's bizarre and crazy, and I love it for that. And I had this. Where did I have this? I had this 14, yeah. So yeah, just about middle of the pack. Now that I'm looking at this again, I might actually put this one lower now that I'm looking at Princess and the Jedi, Stuck in the Muck, Tree Troubles, Yoda's Mission. I think I would actually amend this to have this one lower than, maybe at least lower than Forest Defenders, which I had at 20.
Yeah, which
so
both
looking
of us had
back on
20,
it, maybe
so.
I put it a little bit high in the moment.
Yeah. No, I get it. This is a reflection
getting
of a
all
moment
these
in
right.
time.
It's a reflection of a moment in time. It's a reflection of not always being able to remember every detail.
Yeah.
As you're sitting down going with, and 27 episodes might be the most we've ever ranked in.
Yeah, I think it is.
But that being said, for this episode, I think I enjoyed the skiff chase. I really enjoyed that they ended up making friends with the pick, making the trades so that everyone is happy. I didn't love Aaron as a character, which I'm now remembering, which is maybe why it should be lower than I was initially thinking by my own preference. But I did enjoy the Jedi. I think the central message of the Jedi bringing their sense of optimism and that sense of let's at least try to be friendly. Let's at least try to reach out with good faith, with optimism, with hope, and hopefully we can create mutual understanding, respect where there was none before. Because Aaron was in this situation where she couldn't trust anyone. The Pick and Aaron really didn't like each other. And I feel like that was just a nice example of what make the Jedi, especially at this time, for all the flaws of the Jedi Order, what makes the Jedi Order and its ideals worth fighting for? What makes it worth it to try and continue carrying that flame throughout the years in Star Wars? This is, in its own way, a very simple, low stakes version of that because of the attitude that the Jedi brought, because of the optimism and the hope that they brought, whereby, acting with a little bit of selflessness and a little bit of patience and a little bit of empathy, they were able to create a much better situation.
Yeah, I think the sentiment of the episode is really great. I just think, again, as I said last episode, just an episode I stuffed in there.
Yeah, execution wise, it's a little meh compared to some of the other ones. That's why I'm kind of saying, hey, maybe I was a little hasty to put this so high.
I'm saying as well about Tale of Short Spire, which I put at 5 and you put way lower. Where was it? You put it 19. I'm not saying I would have put it like that much lower, but I'm saying like instead of 5, maybe closer to 9, maybe 8 or 9. Just because I'm looking at like the end of Stuck in the Muck for me is like Starlight Beacon, and like the Jellyfruit Pursuit also has a fantastic ending with
I love Jellyfruit Pursuit. Such a fun episode.
With them giving Tabor the thing, that's being the start of Tabor Redemption. The only other thing we can talk about really is the Thieves of Tharnaka, which was way higher for me than it was for you. 11 here, 21 for you. I liked the return to Ace. I liked the Ace was good in this. I also really liked Tuba Jinx being an evil scoundrel Gungan. I thought that was a really fun twist. And of course, the themes about colonialism and museums and how all of these things are interconnected and how people often just take stuff without asking permission from the cultures. I think is some really deep and insightful stuff. And
sorry, go ahead.
And it's way deeper than I thought this was going to go.
It just didn't really. I know that those themes are there, but for whatever reason, it just didn't really. It didn't really hit home for me. I felt like the execution was as far as talking about legacies of imperialism and how archaeology and research and the anthropology, the cultural anthropology of how we talk about these things and how they play out. I just felt like it just felt to me, and maybe can I really blame the show for this, for such a young audience? It just felt so basic, and it didn't really feel like, to me, it had a lot to really say, especially not in relation that plays out in the Star Wars universe. Also, I was not a huge fan of Ace Callisto as a character, so that might have also been one of the difference makers, where if you enjoy what she brings more, you have a different feeling about that episode. Just wasn't really a winner for me, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I get it. We already talked a little bit, but best episode for both of us was The Prince and the Pirate.
Yeah. I mean, look.
Yeah.
One thing that I really appreciate about this episode was the fact that even after the main twist was over, this had a lot more in the chamber. Once we had Cyrus and our 3 Jedi friends all right there, I thought I had a very good idea of how this episode was going to go in terms of the Tabor reveal, the identity reveal. They went in a totally different direction with it. And I was very appreciative of that, because I think oftentimes Star Wars, it's like poetry, it rhymes. That's one of your favorite things to say, Eli. And there's a reason for that. It's served this franchise incredibly well that we have moments that we have so many moments that call back and connections and things like that, where we really get beautiful manifestations of a lot of different intergenerational legacies and storylines and personal relationships and political dramas that unfold over years and years in really cool ways, and we get these interesting payoffs. On the other hand, I like it when something completely different happens that doesn't feel like, oh, this is a parallel, or oh, this is because of this. Like, I like that. It felt refreshing, I think, that we didn't go into, I don't know,
Yeah.
the default, not default mode. That's not what I'm trying to say, but I like that we went in a very different direction, because sometimes Star Wars can feel a little predictable these days. And this, to its credit, absolutely fucking did not.
Yeah.
I was
No.
very surprised that we walked away with Tabor keeping his identity intact.
Yeah.
I think that took a lot of, for the writers to do that, in the first season of a
Yeah.
show, not knowing, not being certain, not having it announced, are we coming back for season 2?
Yeah.
Wonderful
No,
decision.
it was
Bold
a
for this
gutsy
show.
move.
It worked so well, though. Like, it was so much better than if we were just like, oh, okay, Tabor is Cyrus. Now what do we do?
Yeah. One of the things that I think you spoke to and that I admire about this episode is that, look, we had our character moments for Tabor throughout this season without really knowing who he was. But this episode, if I'm making a basketball metaphor, picks up the ball and just keeps dribbling. There is no pause. It just starts. You see the transmission, you see it's Tabor, and then it just keeps going. It's okay, they're on Starlight Beacon. Okay, he's there. Okay, he needs to distract them. Okay, it never stops, really, except for maybe in the trash compactor, you could argue. And even that, when you're just about to take one breath, then and Tabor's about to reveal it, no, it keeps going. Only letting up for some small character moments at the end. And the relentless pace of storytelling, for me, reminds me of some of the best episodes of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Bad Batch, what have you. And yeah, I said, and in my notes, The Princess of Pirate was a masterpiece of Star Wars television, and I'm not just saying for this show, for all Star Wars shows. The stuff with Cyrus and his inner conflict between being Cyrus and being Tabor, and those two personas clashing. I talked last episode about the great shots of Cyrus inside Tabor's helmet, hearing all the nice things his friends are saying. Those shots will always hit hard for me. And I think it's an incredibly economical use of the episode. It doesn't feel like a single second of that episode is wasted. And there's just a lot to love about that episode.
Yeah, I agree.
Worst episode, I talked a little bit about Finders Keepers. I can talk a little bit more if you want me to just get over with quickly, or we can go to you to talk about Mystery of the Opal Cave, which I haven't heard a lot about from you.
I am curious to hear what you think a little bit more about Finders Keepers, if you wouldn't mind.
It's just, look, Braca is cool. Don't get me wrong, but Braca, it doesn't carry the nostalgia for me that other Star Wars planets do, mostly because it's only actually technically 5 years old as a planet. It's been in 2 other Star Wars things. It's been in Fallen Order and it's been in Bad Batch. And while I love both of those things, they're neither Bad Batch Season 1 or Fallen Order are my favorite Star Wars things. So it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, Brock, cool. Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh yeah, that's nice. The pick are fun. Aaron is a forgettable character, though I do love Mimi quite a bit. But yeah, it's the only episode. I think it's like one of the only episodes that I go, that just kind of wasn't for me. Didn't do it for me.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I also think that I don't think that it has to be a huge emotional reunion with Braca, though, to make it cool that we get to see it again. I would say that.
Yeah, I just feel like
I understand what you're saying. I understand where you're coming from very much. For me, I think Mystery of the Opal Cave, I know what this show is. I know its MO. I know what it's about. So I'm not going to get on its case for saying, "Oh my gosh, this show's unserious. It's so goofy. It has all these." Yeah, of course it is. Of course, it's not always going to be. Of course, it's not always going to be Andor. It's not going to be Rogue One. Duh. That's not what this is about. But there are times when the unseriousness goes to a place where I don't know. I didn't enjoy this episode very much. I thought, look,
it's towards
the literal shadow projector, the speaker, the fog machine, playing on this ancient myth of the creature in the open cave. It's a fun gag. Is it a sound foundation for an episode? I don't think so, no.
Yeah, and I would agree with you more, but here's my one thing. I would agree with you more if it wasn't set up by Tabor. That's actually like the thing that saves this episode for me, is like anything on the path to Tabor Redemption. I'll be like, again, it's you son of a bitch, I'm in.
I felt like this didn't add anything to Tabor Redemption, though. This was just him showing up for the sake of it being Tabor doing some fuck-ass bullshit that makes no sense.
Yeah, and I understand that as well.
That was how I felt about it.
Which is why I think this is probably my least favorite episode that has Tabor in it. I think that's true. Yeah, it is true. But yeah, no, I absolutely get it, and it's not much higher for me. It's only 4 spots higher for me. Yeah. So we got through best episode, worst episode. Let's see what's next. Best character. Go ahead, Jacob.
Best character. Now, I feel like it's become a tradition when we have these retrospective discussions. If I really said who I thought the best character was, it would always be a main character, and I just don't feel like that's very interesting to me. I have a lot of praise for Kai, for Liz, for Nubs, for Tabor, for Zia. I guess he's not a main character, but for Bell, for Drow. There's a lot of great characters, and I think that they all bring something amazing to the table for this show. But I have to give a special shout out to my boy Raxlow, the most fabulously dressed, strangely self-aware, sentient chicken in all of Star Wars. Every time he's on screen, he just cracks me up.
Haley Joel Osment.
If I have to pick one, maybe not best character, maybe personal favorite character that isn't just this is the actual best character, I have to go with Raxel. I feel like every episode that Raxel is in, which we somehow didn't talk about any when we were discussing our rankings. Big shout out to the Raxel episodes, especially
they're all
Raxel
like
Strikes.
Bottom middle to me. They're great, don't get me wrong, but for me, I feel like basically all of them have the same general plot, which is fine. But like, I feel like if you've seen one, you've seen all, which it's fun to watch.
No, none of these are getting nominated for any Emmys. And none of the Raxlow episodes are going to come to mind first, except if you're me, maybe. When you ask someone, "Oh man, what do you think about Young Jedi Adventures?" "Oh, I think it's this really cool show." But I think they're just a lot of fun.
And you constantly think about how Raxlow in that third one definitely violates the Geneva Conventions.
Yeah, he does a lot. I can only assume he breaks a lot of environmental laws, but I appreciate that they're bringing environmentalism into Star Wars TV in this kind of bold way. And it is easier it's easier and more simple to its detriment, really, if you want to have a real conversation about it, to make it all be about a cartoony, over-the-top villain. But yeah, I love Raxlow. I love his taste in music. We get some amazing in-universe music, courtesy of Raxlow's weird destroyer machine that seemingly can do anything. As long as it's like environmentally destructive, his ship can do literally whatever the story needs it to, which is also
his ship
hilarious.
Is a prime example of moving at the speed of plot.
Yeah. Raxlow is always walking exactly at the speed of plot, and I'm so here for it. I'm so here. He
does exactly what the plot needs it to, and frankly, I respect that.
So shout out to Raxlow. Who you got?
Yeah. Really, is that a question you need to ask me?
Oh, yeah, okay. I know
Nubs is the single greatest thing that has happened to Star Wars since its inception in 1977. His cuteness, charm, and bravery and overall vibe are, to quote the kids on this one, immaculate. In this essay, I will... Anyway, no, it couldn't be anybody else but Nubs for me. I am ride or die for Nubs Nation. I feel like people were lucky that I didn't talk about Nubs more this season. I felt I was pretty actually restrained about Nubs. But
you were quite restrained.
But no, this guy, I know it's like another one, like, cured my depression, all ailments gone. Yeah. This blue boy, I swear to God, if we don't see him again, I'm going to be so pissed off. I picked up an issue of, they did a High Republic Adventures issue, which I've never read an issue of, but they did a special issue with a character from that run called Court, and they put Kylus and Nubs in it, and Nubs was the main character of that issue. I basically just got it. It was luckily for free comic day, so it didn't actually cost me anything. But because Daniel Jose Older knows that you do not put Nubs behind a paywall. That's what he knows. He knows you don't restrict the good word of the blue boy. I swear to God, if we don't see this character again, Kai, I love Kai. I love Liz. I love all of these characters. I'd be fine if I see none of them again except for Nubs.
You just need
That's
Nubs.
that's the sacrifice I'm willing to make. It wouldn't be great for me. I obviously want to know about Kai, Liz, Zia, all these great characters, but but if I had to throw them all, if I had to throw them all away for Nubs, a small price to pay for salvation.
Noted.
For Nubsvation.
Okay. He's a charmer, that Nubs. He's a charmer.
Fucking love that guy.
So with that in mind, Eli, I have a couple
of
questions for you about Nubs before we move on. Okay. Nubs or Ochi of Bestoon? You can only have one.
So I have actually made a ranking of some of my top Star Wars characters. As a character, Ochi is the better character. But as a statement about what is beautiful in the world, then absolutely Nubs. So overall, I would actually have to say... Overall, I'm not making a decision, but I'm just saying they're both great in their own ways. That's what I'm saying.
All right, fair enough.
There's a red
button in front of you.
Asking me to choose between Nubs and Ochi of Bestoon is asking parents to choose between children.
Understood. Okay, I understood. I should have known. Okay. There's a red button in front of you. If you press the button, you're the greatest bane of your existence, as you like to call it, Mid-One, or as the rest of us call it, Rogue One. Rogue One will cease to exist. So will Nubs. Do you press the button?
Of course not.
It's not about fighting what we hate. It's about saving.
Of course not. I don't hate Rogue One. I play it up for the bit, but there's a lot of stuff I actually do appreciate about Rogue One. Rogue One is not even my least favorite Star Wars film.
Really? I thought for sure it was, given how hard you've been going on the Rogue One hate train recently.
It's my least favorite live action Star Wars film, but it's not my least favorite Star Wars film.
Okay, that feels like a loophole, because I never think, when I think about Star Wars films, maybe this is on me, but I feel like I don't think about the Clone Wars movie.
Okay, necessarily. But excluding TCW movie, yeah, it is. But there's stuff I love about it. Like, I love Chirrut, I love K2, I love seeing those Neo OT designs. I was getting a little annoyed at a lot of people saying that Rogue One and subsequently Andor are like these messianic gifts from God. When to me they are fine. When to me they're both very good. But no, are you done with your existential questioning?
I just thought of one. I thought of one more because apparently Rogue One didn't quite hit the spot that I was hoping for it to. Okay. There will be a Nubs TV show.
God bless.
However, the co-protagonist is Darth Maul. Do you take the Nubs TV show, or do you say to Lucasfilm, leave this one be? I can't deal with more Darth Maul. Which weighs more in your calculus of the Nubs Darth Maul hypothetical TV show?
So I'm trying to timeline this out.
Don't think about it too hard.
Okay.
Maybe it's the world between worlds. Maybe it's like a Star Wars version of a Marvel What If kind of deal. Just don't. Yeah. Nubs and Darth Maul. The Adventures of Nubs and Darth Maul. Do you take it or do you leave it?
One word for you. Deal.
Oh, wow. Okay, folks. There we go. You know what? I appreciate it. I respect you being willing to set aside your animosity towards Darth Maul for the greater good.
Here's the thing. As much as I don't like Darth Maul, am I going to deny that there have been some great stories with him in it? Of course not. Do I like him in those stories? That's another question. But The Siege of Mandalore is one of my favorite Star Wars stories ever. Do I like them all in it? No, but there needs to be some villain in there.
We can move on now. I've exhausted all my existential nubs related.
Question. Worst character, Jacob. Who do you got?
I don't really think there's any bad characters in here, at least not ones that show up a lot. So my answer for this was Ace Callisto.
Ooh.
I just felt, and she was only in, I think,
2 episodes.
The Jedi and the Thief, and gosh, what's that other one?
Thieves of Tharnaka.
Yeah, Thieves of Tharnaka and Jedi and the Thief. Yeah, some confusing names here. Yeah. Star Wars tradition at this point to get all the TV show names muddled up. I just felt like she didn't, for lack of a more eloquent way that I could think of to say this, I didn't feel like she served a good purpose in the episodes that she was in, beyond just being there to be there. I didn't feel like there was anything that made her like unique or fun or appealing, as a lot of glup shido type side characters do. There just wasn't really a lot going for her. That's really it. I don't hate her or anything, just far from my favorite side character.
Yeah. Changed my mind. Cortaldon should have just been Selak. Don't get that guy. It's not like I hate that guy or anything. I just found him to be very bored, to be very bland and uninteresting. It just the team up would have been so much better if they had Selak and Big Angles there, especially the fucking Anzellan that they work with to do his thing instead of like Cortaldon, who I just legitimately I did not remember until I watched that episode with you for this. I was incredibly bored by Taldon. But
fair enough.
Worst things to be. All right. Coolest new thing you noticed for the rewatch. So this is going to be weird because you have rewatched. This was your first watch, but coolest little detail you noticed for this.
Detail I noticed. Gosh, that's a good question. I think that's a good question. I enjoyed the way that they did a lot of there were a lot of subtle details that sort of differentiated the Jedi from the Jedi of the older or of the High Republic from the Jedi of the Twilight of the Republic.
Yeah, I think they
like I think you might say, duh, yeah, that's a fact. That's just a factor of the time within which it takes place. But I think that I think you see it borne out, especially in the way that the Jedi interact with the general public, the non-Jedi who are in their spheres, I would say.
Yeah, I absolutely can see that. Mine was just, I'm a huge fan of the Tabor Redemption plotline, but I noticed this time around how methodically it was constructed. It took a good 7-8 episodes of constant build-up to get there. Like, for us, like, they did not do it to us all at once, or all at twice, or even all at 3 times. It was a concerted plot line that I think they embedded really well that made, like, it was one of those things where, do you have to watch every single one of them to understand that storyline? No. But if you do, you are rewarded for it.
I see, yeah.
Like, at the end, you can look back on a lot of the season. That was one of the greatest things I had with rewatching this season with you, is that now that I've seen with Prince and the Pirate who he was, now you can start making more sense of his actions.
Yeah.
Gosh. Suddenly,
now that you're hyping this up, I might even have to rewatch it at some point. Oh my goodness!
Now that you can see why he's doing it, what he's doing will make more sense, which I think is just really cool. All right, what was I gonna say? All right, finally, favorite planet.
Favorite planet. Now this one might be a default choice, but I really enjoyed Tanu. To me, this was mine brand new. To me, this was a brand new planet. I'm not sure if maybe it pops up elsewhere in the High Republic.
I believe it's mentioned in one of the High Republic books, but that's it. It's
But
mentioned in a few of the High Republic books, but that's really it. This is the first time that we've actually had something take place on there.
yeah, I really enjoyed seeing a new planet, or a pretty much new planet, just getting built out from the ground up for this show as it went on. I think it was a perfect, with the jelly fruit fest, especially the jelly fruit festival. I thought it was terrific, and I thought it was the perfect backdrop, and I just thought it was a fun and snazzy planet. I enjoyed it.
It's such a vibrant community is what I took away
Yeah,
from it.
great
It's,
way
like,
to describe
so
it.
many cool traditions and interactions between people, just very wholesome. I think it's great. What was I going to say? Yeah, I think that's going to be it for this episode. Of course, we like to take this episode and describe what's next for us. The last part of this episode, describing what's next for us on In a Galaxy. So next week, we will be doing Star Wars Opinions number 5. And then we will be doing... We will be doing Season 18 of Star Wars in a Galaxy, Jedi Survivor. So excited to go into this great story. Yeah, so Season 18 will be that. The posts might be a little more sporadic during the summer, but we're trying to speed run Survivor recordings. And then also in the summer, I will be doing 4 more of a Theme Between Themes, which is the series I started 2 years ago, where I and a special guest would have on, which I'm currently planning right now. We'll watch certain Star Wars and talk about it based on certain interconnected themes from all across the universe. And that I'm excited to do. We did a bunch of them last summer, and I'm excited to do them this summer with more special guests. And of course, Epic Confrontations continues this summer. At the time of recording this, at the time posting this, even Tuesday, the title match: Alden Diaz, Jerry, the Tan Junkie. The Iconoclast versus the Karen Junkie. 7 rounds to the finish to get the Epic Confrontations belt and win the first title match. That's going to be it for this episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy. Thank you so much for listening. You can find us at In a Galaxy Pod everywhere. You can listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and everywhere you listen to podcasts, we'll be there. You can find me, Linktree, linktr.ee/_OchiFan327. Yeah, Epic Confrontations, all that stuff. And in the meantime, I think there's all left to say is may the Force be with you always.